Everyone, welcome to Getting to Know You. This week, my guest is Rocky Marcoux, trustee of St. Sebastian's Parish, longtime parishioner, and pretty sure integral part to the parish, as I've seen most recently with the whole bell tower experience, which I'll get into in a minute. Rocky, hi, how are you?
Good, John. How are you doing this morning?
I'm great. I'm great. Thank you so much for joining us and giving us some time.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Awesome. Hey, let's talk about that bell tower for a second. That there was just recently the ceremony and blessing. That was a great event. I don't know how many people were there, like between 50 and 100, right?
Yeah, I'd say closer to 100. I think it was very well attended.
Yeah.
And I think it was really, well, it was a celebration, a culmination of what had happened over the last year or so with the actual construction or renovation, I shouldn't say construction, but the renovation of the bell tower and a couple of the associated roofs that needed to be replaced on that bell tower, along with substantial tuck pointing, as well as some work that had been done on the north elevation of the church.
Yeah.
But it's actually a culmination of things that started really back in 2005 when we first started to deal with some of the water coming into the bell tower. So it really was a celebration of a long journey and a successful completion to that journey.
Yeah, I think you said during the ceremony something to the effect of, parishes go through things and not every day is great, and then you get days like this when you can celebrate and as you said and CJ Murray said, light up that tower like a beacon of hope. It was cool. It was a nice night.
It was, and I guess I would reiterate that in our day-to-day existence, I mean, God gives us every day, and we need to be thankful for that gift because it truly is a gift. And sometimes we labor, and particularly when we work at things collectively as community, and we wonder if we're moving the needle sometimes. And while this is not more of really of a spiritual event, although it could be viewed as that in some respects, it was really a celebration of bringing back some of the physical places that we worship in and bringing them back to good order. And as I said, it was cumulative, and it was a day that for everyone that was involved, from the person, from the child who gave $1 in the basket incrementally, maybe a penny at a time when they were a child growing up in the parish, to some of our larger donors, everyone who's held the project in their prayers. It was a day to celebrate, and we should really celebrate on those occasions because it really causes us to collectively remember how we got there to begin with.
Absolutely, and it reinforces our community and everything. I would say it was a spiritual event in the sense that it brought that symbol of light back to the community, and it also felt like a coming together after, I know COVID's not over, but this kind of gathering in a more kind of festive way again. It's something we don't do often these days, so it felt great. So I want to get into more of your work as a trustee, but I'm going to hold off on that for a second and first just ask you to tell us about yourself, who you are, and what's important to you and the kind of work that you've done, and anything you want to tell us about you.
Well, sure. I guess to start with how I came to Milwaukee. I grew up a family of 8 children, and my mother and father in very rural northeastern Connecticut. It was an old mill town that had been decimated by the loss of the textile industry that had gone south after World War II. So it was my parents. My parents worked hard. My mother was a nurse. My father worked where he could find work in the mills. I had the great good fortune of coming out to Marquette University in 1976, and that's how I came to Milwaukee. And ultimately, I met my best friend who I married, my wife Christine, and I knew each other at Marquette, and were married in 1986. In 1990, we came to St. Sebastian's. We joined St. Sebastian's because we moved to Washington Heights. At the time, we had purchased a home on North 58th Street, and we really felt that, and we had been coming to St. Sebastian's for probably about a year. We had lived up on Wells Street, 49th and Wells, and were looking for a parish to join. We had been at Jesu when we were at Marquette, and St. Sebastian's was so welcoming. It just seemed like it seemed like it was home. And so we came to live on the West Side. I began my career with the city of Milwaukee, a career that lasted about 35 years. I retired in July of 2020. And my wife, Christine, also began her career with the Social Security Administration, who she worked for almost 35 years. And she retired in 2019. So we have three beautiful girls that all went to St. Sebastian's grade school, Divine Savior, Holy Angels, and then on to college and beyond. And we've been very, very blessed. But that's how I came to Milwaukee, and certainly how Chris and I came to the parish. And we have been active parishioners since we joined in 1990.
What was the work that you did for the city?
I started my career as a public housing manager in the public housing program, and eventually became the chief development officer for the housing authority as we removed some of the older super block developments. We either renovated them or tore them down and replaced them with beautiful communities with architecture that respects people's dignity as human beings. The old architecture of public housing was really was very cold. It, as I said, did not respect people's dignity as human beings. It was uniform across the country, uniformly bad, I might add. And we took advantage of some federal dollars that were for the recreation of public housing. So I was busy doing that. So I started, as I said, as a housing manager, went into the development portion of the housing authority, and I spent 16 years of my career with the Milwaukee Housing Authority. And those were great years. I learned a lot. I really got my a second education, if you will, looking at the resiliency and working with people in public housing. And then after that, Mayor Barrett he was elected as mayor in 2004, and asked me to serve as the commissioner of the Milwaukee Department of City Development. And I did that from 2004 until I retired in July of 2020.
That's great. I've never heard anyone talk about, and maybe this is just me being naive, but like the connection between architecture and people's dignity. That's cool.
Well, it's a very, and think about it.
Yeah.
Whether you live in an apartment, or you're fortunate enough to live in a single family home, or maybe you're in a duplex, whatever your condition is, even if you live in a homeless shelter, the surroundings
right.
that are around you really either give dignity or they take it away. And I think that's very, very important. We take for granted because most of us live in homes that were designed to, with a certain modern footprint, or it doesn't have to be a modern footprint. It's a comfortable way to live.
Yeah.
But the public housing program really was set up as more of a barracks. It became, unfortunately, a warehousing operation, and oftentimes a tool for segregation. And that is particularly true of some major cities in the United States.
Right.
And so I felt very blessed to be part of a program that kind of it kept the good things. The public housing communities are communities, and they're very strong communities. As I said, that's really where I got my second education, my formal education, of course, in my K through 12 and then on at Marquette. But I really received a life education in the public housing developments from the folks who lived there, and I learned a lot about how the physical attributes of where you live can impact behavior, can impact self-esteem, and ultimately impact community. So everyone deserves to live in a place that respects their dignity.
Yeah.
No matter what income you are, no matter what socioeconomic status, race, gender, at all. God didn't make any junk. And so we all deserve a place to live, and we all deserve a place that respects our dignity within communities that respect our dignity.
So it sounds like you got it all figured out. I really do. I am grateful to hear those words coming out of a parish trustee. A lot of times a parish trustee is an important job, but they look at the details and they sign the checks and they kind of make sure everything's organized. But to have the vision that you're talking about looking at people's dignity, that whole picture, is awesome. So thank you for being that presence. And it's a good transition to talking about, I wonder if you can talk about your faith a little bit and how it's driven your life.
Well, I think the real beginnings of my faith were instilled in me by my parents, particularly my mother, who was definitely a person of faith. We we went to mass every day. Well, we went to mass Monday through Friday. I don't know, Saturday, I guess we got a day off. Sunday, we were back at mass, and we'd say the rosary at night. And the Catholic, and of course, the Sisters of the Holy Cross back in New England also were pivotal in, I think, formation. Mary's months, May and October, we would begin the day with a rosary, and had great experiences with the sisters. And I think formation is an important thing, and I think that's something we do exceedingly well at St. Sebastian's School, by the way,
Yeah.
where I saw our three daughters help to form in their faith. But ultimately, the education of our children is really the primary responsibility of parents, or the significant adults in their lives, because parents are not always present, and we know that can be a challenge. So I take from my parents the beginnings of my faith, and I think faith is a gift, and like any gift, it's what you do with it. And so my faith grew, I think, through trial and error, and I think also sometimes when you reach points in your life where you may be at a low, I think your faith brings you through, and your faith brings you the ability, the strength you need to keep moving. Also get a lot of faith from seeing the beauty of my wife and our three daughters, and how they live their lives. And certainly, I consider, I mentioned earlier, I consider Chris to be my best friend, but she's my life partner. She's also my life coach. And if one accepts coaching, okay, this is always a good thing. But your faith journey never ends. And I think that you're in the work that you do, John, both at the parish and in the balance of your professional life. And I think all of us look at each other, and I think you can see a reflection of people's faith life in how they live their lives, how they carry themselves, how they comport themselves, how they raise their children. Faith plays a big role in that. And,
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I do think it's like, it is a lifelong journey, and it sounds cliche to say it, but I've recently been comparing it to exercise. It's like, yeah, you could know what to eat, and you could, work out, but if you stop, it's going to go the other way. It's something you have to keep working at, and there's always more to learn. There's always more to cultivate. So,
and you have to believe truly that there's something on the other side, right?
Yeah, you gotta be a people of hope too.
Yeah, hope plays a big role in that.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, talk about your and Chris's relationship with this parish. I mean, you're currently a trustee, but you weren't always a trustee. How have you been involved in St. Sebastian, and how did you become a trustee? Is a good question too.
Well, Chris and I started to get involved when we joined the parish, and then ultimately probably got even more involved when our children, particularly Sarah, our young oldest, began at Tal, and then of course, and God bless Frank Maloney and all the work that he has done there over the years, and Sue before that. But the whole concept at St. Sebastian's were, at one point years ago, we would sign a contract that basically said that as parents, we are the primary educators of our children. That's our responsibility. And the principal, the faculty, and the staff of the school are there to assist us in our primary responsibility. And I think we took that very seriously. Also, time, talent, and treasure, which is something that the parish has really talked about over the years in many different ways, and for many very eloquent spokespeople, both from the pulpit, from pastors, as well as from the pulpit, from men and women of St. Sebastian who believe very strongly in those concepts. And certainly volunteerism was an expectation if you were a school parent, as well as a St. Sebastian's community member, because you were making a commitment to the rest of the community through your involvement. And so we got involved, as many of our colleagues at the time were involved in different things, the Homeschool Association, certainly Fish Fry. Um, and I can name many others. I was on Buildings and Grounds. At one point, I was on the Pastoral Council. We call it the Parish Council back then.
Yeah, right.
So I served many different roles. Chris served many different roles. Ultimately, I stepped back, though. Oh, I was very involved also in the 1999 Giving Faith the Room to Grow campaign.
Right.
The trustees at the time were Bill Bowles and Jerry Leo. And Bill and Jerry organized kind of a visioning committee to look at what the needs of the parish were long term, particularly from the physical standpoint. This was really done from more of a facility standpoint. And because I had expertise in that area and experience in my day job, I made a commitment to that, along with others such as Bob Duffy, and there are many others that are within the parish that are still here. Tom Tashoni, Audrey Tashoni. And we came up with a program that ultimately was implemented in the Giving Faith the Room to Grow campaign of 1999 through 2001, which resulted in the construction of the gathering space and the ADA accessibility modifications to the school, the church hall, the new copper roof on the church, many other changes as well. The refurbishment of the pews, the tiling in the church, every aspect of the physical portions of the physical plan of the parish were impacted by that. So I was very engaged in that. But I think what happened in 2004, I took a bit of a step back. I mean, I certainly was still a parishioner and I participated in many events, but I really, with the new responsibilities I had as Commissioner of the Department of City Development, I did not have any spare time to devote to my volunteer efforts. So I really had stepped back from that. And then when I retired, I had a phone call from Father Peter Patrick, and who asked me if I would consider becoming a trustee. And I'll be honest, what I said to him, I said, "Well, let me think about it, Father, and I'll get back to you." And I wasn't necessarily sold on it, because I said, "Okay, the door's opening back here." Okay. And but then I said, how can I say no?
Yeah.
This parish has given to me, to my wife, to our three beautiful children so much. Yeah. And while yes, we had certainly given a lot ourselves over the years, but I said it's really, to those of much is given, much is expected. Yeah. And to me, it was not I was not going to say no. So I called Father back and I said I'd be happy to serve as trustee. And it's been a little over a year. It's been a great experience, and I love working with my fellow trustee, Audrey Tashoni, who's wonderful. Certainly everyone on the Pastoral Council, Finance Council, Buildings, all of the different committees. But Father Peter Patrick, I mean, God is good all the time. God is good. He really lights up a room. Yes. The enthusiasm that he brings. I love working with him on so many different things. I think he's been a real gift to our parish. So I am so very thankful that I said yes, and it's been a very rewarding experience.
We're thankful too. You were the right man at the right time to help get the current project that just got completed. So thank you for all. I know people didn't see a lot of what you did, I'm sure, but we know you did a lot, and I'm hoping you're able to give some of those presentations that I was able to see of the process and the progress. I mean, there was a ton of work that was done with the tower project.
Yeah, there was a lot of work was accomplished, and I think we got to give credit where credit's due, though. The work of the Buildings and Grounds Committee, Holly Rutenbeck, who's just done a spectacular job as the chairperson of that committee, following in the footsteps of her father, who had served that same function for many years. Other members of the committee that really stepped up, Brian Kirkpatrick, who also stepped up as our director of maintenance, and Audrey Tashoni, the Father Peter Patrick. I mean, everybody came together. It really was a community a community piece. The fact that I was able to spend time on it while I'm retired, so it does help.
But you had the expertise that was needed too, so it was.
Well, and I appreciate that, but it really was a community lift,
Yeah.
and I think what all of us got out of it is that we can do big things,
Yeah.
and things that need to be done, and hopefully it sets the table for the future needs, and how we can, as a team, as a parish, as a community, figure out what needs to be done, and how do we get there? How do we get it done? How do we get to the finish line on some other projects as well?
Yeah, that's awesome. Hey, just like quickly, for anyone that has heard that term trustee but doesn't exactly know what it means, how would you define what the role of a trustee is?
Well, a trustee is really an advisor to the pastor, an advisor to the pastoral council, a resource to all of those as well. Someone who has had experience in the parish, and knows how the parish operates, how it functions, I should say. And I think it's something that the archdiocese has. There are two trustees, I believe, at each parish.
Right.
And there's a treasurer trustee, which is the position I hold, and a secretary trustee. So there are different specific things that each of those positions do. In some parishes, it's more you're more engaged in the day-to-day running of things. We have, of course, we're blessed with a finance director, and Joanne Proberg, and so she handles more of the day-to-day. Well, we do end up signing checks and things of that nature, but it gives us more time to devote to being on the pastoral council, as well as Audrey and I are also on various committees as well, that some we sit on, some we just sit in on. So I think I don't want to say we're senior leadership. That would be I don't think the appropriate way to describe it, but I think we bring a perspective of trying to look at things globally, and how all the pieces are fitting together, and ultimately how we can be how we can use the time and talent that we've been giving to best serve the parish in the needs that are identified, both at the pastoral council level, as well as, and probably most importantly, by the pastor.
Yeah, I would say you're definitely part of the leadership team, and it's helpful to think about, it's not just a singular pastor, but a collection of wisdom that helps to guide our parish.
Servant leadership.
I like that. That's good. We can land on that. Hey, my last question for you is, when you think about the future, Rocky, what do you hope for?
Well, I'll start with something that my mother had us pray every day, and that's for world peace. And then you take that very global statement and you say, how do you get there? Well, let there be peace on earth, let it begin with me, like it's in that song.
Yeah.
And I think my hope is, what I see for the future is that we can find a way to bring peace to our homes, bring peace to our city and our country and the world. And it does really begin with every act of kindness that every person gives. And I think then it becomes cumulative. Yeah. And I think that as a parish, we need to think, as they say, think globally, act locally. I think that we reach out to places like Tail Cinte. We also reach out through St. Vincent de Paul and our many other programs that we support to a population here, sometimes on the west side, sometimes on the larger city of Milwaukee. I think we need to continue to do that. We need to continue to be stewards. We need to be servant leaders, and we need to be able to vision and to be able to reach beyond what we think we may be capable of, because that's how all great things are accomplished, is to have the faith that we can move mountains, right? If you have faith. And I believe that St. Sebastian's, I said that at the lighting ceremony, we talk about it being a beacon on the west side, and it truly is. But we stand on the shoulders of some very, very faith-filled people who for generations helped to build what is now the parish that all of us enjoy, that we inherited. We came into something that was very special to begin with.
Right.
Now it's really our obligation to make sure that we build on that, that we enhance it, and that we bring to it our own unique gifts and talents that are of this time and of this place. So that, 50, 60 years from now, when people look back and at the time that we're here, all of us as a community, people will say that, well, those folks made the right decisions, and they helped to move things forward. And whether it's the building of the church in 1929, or the countless sacraments that have blessed folks that have been through our doors, this church has been a beacon and it has been a home. And that's the way I'd like to end the discussion on what St. Sebastian's means to all of us. Is really, it's our home. And it represents so many different things. We all know church is not in a building. Church is in all of us, because God lives in all of us. But that church helps to facilitate bringing together a community. The school helps to facilitate the education of our community, and the furtherance of what we believe as Christians and what we believe as Roman Catholics. And as I've said in church and also at the ceremony, that cross on top of St. Sebastian's means a lot. It says it's a very succinct symbol that speaks volumes. I mean, books have been written, including the Bible, about what that cross means. And it's a very succinct thing when all of us come into that church every Sunday and look up, and whether we see it in the church itself or on top of the church, it's a sign of who we are. And so I think we're very blessed to be in a community such as St. Sebastian's, and I feel very strongly that we will remain strong as long as we're true to what, as they say, be who we say we are. And I think if we can be true to being who we say we are, that we're Christians, that we're Roman Catholics, that we walk with Christ, then St. Sebastian's has a great future here on the West Side.
Well said. Very, very well said. Thank you for sharing that. I do not think it is a stretch to say, thank you for who you are as embodying servant leadership in our parish. I think you live that very well and very clearly. So thank you, Rocky.
Well, thank you, John. I appreciate the time you gave me as well today, and all the work that you're doing and your colleagues on our professional staff to further the goals of making this an extraordinary place for people to live out their faith.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much. And it's been an absolute pleasure, and continued blessings on your journey.